Have you guys ever seen like an amazing wedding film and you're like, how in the hell did they create that? Welcome to the Business First Creatives Podcast. I am chatting with my good friend and fellow filmmaker, Ben Davis. However, he makes wedding films. You guys all know I make family films, but like every time I watch one of his films, I'm like, I should find myself another husband and get married just so that Ben can make me one of these films. Ben, good morning. Welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for having me, Goalie.
I mean, you know, your wedding films are amazing. And guys, the funny thing is, I'm starting with the wedding films, but we're not even really going to talk about wedding films that much today. But Ben, just because I'm curious and I'm nosy, and now that you're on the podcast and I'm recording, I can ask you, how
Sure.
did you start in wedding films?
Ciao. Okay, so what had happened was, that's how you start every good story. What had happened was, so in college, of course, I attended the University of Pittsburgh. And so some of my good friends from there happened to be getting married. Actually, let me backtrack just a bit because it actually starts way before that. I've been doing web development, graphic design, all that type of creative work for a while since people knew me since back in college. And so I started doing some work for a restaurant in the city of Pittsburgh, and they had a video guy, but there was a couple times where he couldn't make it to do some shoots. So I started taking like all the footage we already had, chopping, screwing it, doing some edits because we were doing like television commercials and advertisements that would play at Heinz Field, well, formerly known as Heinz Field for the Steelers and things like that for this restaurant. So they kind of knew me from doing that type of creative work already. And because this isn't their their zone of genius, they figured, oh, you edit video, you must be able to make videos too,
Because
right?
that's the same thing, Ben.
Yeah, it's the same, right? Not quite. So they were getting married, and they said at the week before, hey, we want to get a wedding video. We got everything else. We didn't get a video. We didn't think about it. So they called me BD. That's how all my college friends know me. They was like, BD, don't you do videos? I was like, I think so, a little bit. And then they was like, well, can you come do our wedding video? I was like, yeah, about that. That's probably not my testimony. That's probably not gonna be a good idea. They was like, well, just come
Just
try.
try.
Something is better than nothing. I was just like, well, I don't got no cameras. You know what I mean? Like, I'm supposed to shoot this on my phone, right? This is like iPhone 7 type age. You know what I mean? So they was like, no, we got like $500. Is that enough? I was like, I have no idea, but give it to me. I'll figure it out. So I rented a bunch of stuff, probably nothing that all went together. Um, real talk, right? Googled everything I could find. Me and my wife, I hustled my wife. I was like, get in the car. What are we doing? Doesn't matter. We'll figure out when we get there. So hustle my wife, and we YouTubing like the whole drive there. It's like a 5-hour drive. So we're on YouTube. We're trying to figure this out, watching all the videos we can find. We show up with cameras. I kid you not, I can't make this up. We had to be the most unprofessional looking people we've ever saw. Like, we had cameras in like a laptop bag. Like, we didn't know what we was doing. Like, it looked really bad. We had tripods from like Best Buy. We couldn't figure out how to put them together. Like, it was bad. But we showed up and we put together a product, and they really loved it. They really enjoyed it. And then I think we put together like a highlight video within like a week. Within the next week, all our friends was like, oh my gosh, you guys make amazing videos. In my mind, I was like, no, first of all, no, this is not it. But that's kind of how it started. And we've been doing it for the past 7 years, ever since.
I mean, Ben, clearly it is your testimonial, and clearly you got your shit together because, I mean, I'm listening to you tell this story, and I'm like, when we stop hitting record, I want to see this video because does it live anywhere or have you hidden it?
It it's in the interwebs somewhere in
Okay.
a hidden link that only me and baby Jesus could find.
Okay, but so that is so interesting, Ben, because I didn't realize that like you got your start because you were doing this work for the restaurant, and then you shot a wedding as like a favor, and now you are doing both. So at the end
Yes.
of the day, what is your love language? I mean, do you prefer the corporate work or do you prefer the wedding films? What's your favorite?
That's, I ain't gonna say that's a hard one. So I think early on, I really enjoyed the weddings because it was new, it was refreshing. We started doing it because we got hustled. We kept doing it because it was something that me and my wife enjoyed doing together. And it was something that, we became extremely passionate about because it just gave us a unique way of having quality time together, right?
Mhm.
In a way that most husband and wife team, if you're not a husband and wife team, you don't really understand the fun, the fight, the fancy that come with working together with your spouse. So I think after doing that, we loved it. And then it got to a point where our kids got older
Mhm.
and understanding the value of time became very important to us. And so people say, oh my gosh, your kids are 10, your son, he's going to graduate from high school in 8 years. That's great. 8 years seems like an insurmountable amount of time until you measure it in the amount of moments that you may not be there for. And when we started changing the lens in which we did our business, we started to make a shift in the amount of commercial and corporate work we did
Mhm.
outside of weddings, because weddings happen on weekends and corporate work happens during
During
weekdays.
the weekdays. Mhm.
Yeah. I want to be with my kids at the playground, right? That
Yeah.
type of thing. So the more we started doing more corporate work, the more we actually fell in love with it, to be perfectly honest with you. Not the same. It's not a we love one more than the other. They're very different in their approaches. They're very different in their storytelling. They're very different in the way you do business.
Mhm.
And so for us, we actually enjoy corporate a bit more these days because it allows us to flex our creativity just a little bit more.
The season of your life. I mean, I
Yes.
love when my guests come on and they're talking about their pivot because I mean, I've had a lot of people on this podcast, including myself, talking about pivots. And
Hmm.
most of us are making the pivot based on what's happening in our outside life. I mean, like, I
Yes.
don't know if you've heard, but right now I am Chloe's personal Uber driver.
Oh,
I shuttle
you
her
too
around
now?
3 times a day.
Oh my
I pick
gosh.
her up from one, I drop her off at one school. I pick her up midday. I take her to another school. I pick her up at the end of the day. I got to take her to volleyball practice. So,
You
I
sound
mean,
like me.
I got like 2 hours in
Okay.
between when I can actually work. So, I mean, I was doing VIP days. Can't do those very
Hmm.
much anymore because I don't have a solid day where I get to sit in this office and just work. And so
Right.
I love that you have made this pivot so that you can spend more time with the kids. I mean, because they got gymnastics, they got football. I don't think the little one's doing anything yet, but
Child.
bless you when she finds something that she loves.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, I think the corporate work allows a little bit more flexibility to be parents,
Hmm.
but also to be married, right? That's important. At the end of the day, as a husband, as a father, the best gift I can give my family is being present. And
Yeah.
so there's no amount of money that I could replace with moments in time, because those are the things your kids will never forget. So for me, it became not a love-hate relationship with one over the other. It just became a priority over choosing my family and myself and my mental health over
Hmm.
everything. So honestly, I enjoy the corporate work just because it allows me to be a lot more creative than I can be on a wedding day. On a wedding day, I have to be very reactive. I have to get
Hmm.
the cards that's dealt to me. I don't really have a say in much. I've learned to become a very good puzzle, I don't know what you call it, puzzle putter together person. What
Puzzle solver.
Sure, those guys. Woo! I've learned to become very much good at that. And that's literally what you're doing on a wedding day. You're taking puzzle pieces, you're figuring out how to put all these pieces together. And I think as my engineering background, it helps me to see things a little bit more holistically. But in the corporate world, it allows me to really geek out on being the creative junkie that I am. I get to propose things that my wedding clients would never want to do. I get
Okay.
to shape stories. I get to ask questions. I think one of the main reasons why a lot of companies hire us is because I've been told I'm really good at hosting interviews. I'm really good at asking the questions to push the buttons to get people to say the things that I need them to say to create amazing storylines. And that's an art. That takes a lot of practice. And
Hmm.
I really pride myself on doing that. And so I enjoy being able to go, shoot Monday in the factory, shoot Wednesday in the middle of a field. And then on Thursday, I'm on the beach in swimming trunks shooting something else for the same story. Like that brings me joy because it's very different. And it allows me to see the organic side of people who, just being completely transparent, weddings have become very much more fanfare than they have been a show of love and affection at least the ones that I continue to get at this point. And so I just needed something different because authenticity is really, really important to me and Natasha.
I mean, it's really interesting that you use the word reactive because the one thing that I was going to ask you, and I think you've already alluded to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyways. I feel like your wedding work is a lot of post production. Like you're there, you're documenting it as it happens. As you said, you don't really get to influence much in your frame other than like the angles that you're capturing. You don't get to tell people what to do on their wedding day. But when
Right.
you do your commercial work, when you do your corporate work, is that a lot more like pre-production? Are you spending a lot more of your time planning the shoot versus figuring out how to put it all together after?
So what's crazy is I tell most people who try to get into the commercial world, if you want to become a good commercial filmmaker, start in weddings, right? And it's for a few different reasons. One, you have to learn to shoot in situations where you have no control. Can
Mhm.
you still capture moments, stories, sound bites when you don't have control for a dang thing that's happened? That's A. B, shooting weddings helps you to learn how to be more efficient in how you move and how fast you move and being able to do less with more. There are things that my team can do with a 2-man team that sometimes it might take a team of 8 to do
Mhm.
because we're so used to doing it. It's second nature for us, right? So we do a lot of pre-production for weddings and people don't really understand what that means, right? And so that gave us a lot of practice going into the corporate world to be a lot more prepared for situations where most people wouldn't be. I mean, we're going to venue because we travel so much for weddings. We're not shooting in a lot of the same venues over and over. It's a lot of showing up the day of and figuring out,
Ooh,
oh, okay, this is nice, or oh, this is going to be
this
tough,
is extra.
right? This is exactly. So it takes a lot of research before we show up, scouring the internet for pictures, photographs, videos of things that have been done, calling the venue, asking a million questions, but also showing up the day before and walking the grounds and talking to the people that work there, right? These are the things that people don't understand, that when you say you charge this amount, this is why we're going above and beyond. We're doing
Because
the
you're not
things that
cheap then.
probably, I mean, we cost about, $7 plus 3 carry the one, right? That type of thing. But we're going above and beyond to ask these questions, to do these things, to scour the locations, to talk to the venue managers, to talk to the electricians, to talk to the lighting guys. Like, can you do this? Can you not do this? Tell me about these things, right? So when you walk into the corporate space, all of those things come into play. It's just amplified, right? Because in the corporate space, people are spending a bigger dollar, and not only do they want something pretty, but they want something that's going to help them be profitable, right? It's the two
They
P's. You
want a
got to be
return on
pretty
investment.
and they got to be
Hmm.
profitable. So there's got to be an ROI. We're just not making pretty things. It needs to serve a purpose. So every decision that we make in our filmmaking process for corporate and commercial needs to equal a dollar amount. If we turn the lights on, there needs to be a reason. If we turn the lights off, there needs to be a reason, right? If I tell you to wear blue and not red, there needs to be a sound reason behind it, and not just because you look pretty in red. Like, that's not it. That's not God's plan for our life. No, we're not doing that, right? So when we talk about pre-production, it's a lot more intensive. We literally just finished a project this week where we planned a production for a product for a company from the ground up. I'm talking about from concept to execution. We hired the models. We had the set built for it.
Hmm.
We had to hire the gaffers, the grip guys, right? These are things you're not doing in weddings. You're not hiring grip guys. You're not hiring gaffers. You're not writing scripts. You're not writing the messaging for the pieces. You're not doing product shots. You're just literally showing up and shooting whatever's there. So in corporate, there's a lot more expectation on things that have to happen, right? But also, they're not asking you to deliver 45 minutes of something, 20 minutes of something. It needs to be 2 minutes of wow, right? In fact, 2 minutes of wow, like, you know what I mean? And so it sounds easy until you have to do it, and to fit so much information that has to be impactful, on brand, perfect messaging in such a little bit amount of time can be a bit of a challenge. And so I think having a sound pre-production process allows us to make sure we dot all our I's and we cross all our T's, and that everything is where it needs to be. Now, me, I'm not an organizational type person. That ain't me. Like,
I
if you
know
look at my
that.
sock drawer, ain't no sock Mac. This National Diabetes Awareness Month every day in my house. I wear mismatched socks. It is what it is, right? But my wife, she's organized to the T. So every sock has a match. And like in our wedding business, in our corporate business, she's the one who dots I's, crosses T's. She's calling clients. She's making sure the paperwork's filed. She's making sure we got permits. That's a whole nother meeting. You got permits and you got model releases and you got permissions.
Mm-hmm.
All the things you don't have to do when you shoot a wedding.
Yes.
So I think like pre-production is really what differentiates the levels of filmmakers that you have, because that attention to detail is what's going to take you from greatness to excellence.
Yeah. Let's slightly pivot. I want to talk about marketing, because the funny thing is, I mean, Ben, what's the best marketing that you've ever done for your wedding films? Like, how do you get your clients?
Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I would say over 50% of our business comes from wedding planners.
Nice.
Another 25 from referrals. The other 25 from, I won't say 20. The other 20 from SEO, and I would say 10% from referrals. Not saying we don't get a lot of referrals, but when most people they refer their friends and then they see what it's going to cost, they be like, oh, I didn't know you paid that. Oh, you must got a good job. You must got a good job. Like, you know what I mean? And so we don't get kind of referrals unless like they have friends who are in that same circle,
that same level.
So yes, boom. So we put a lot of we knew that going in, that wedding planners would be the gatekeeper to the clients that we would like to have. Mm-hmm. So we work very hard in establishing relationships, and not just one-sided relationships, but making sure that whatever planners need, we can offer. Hey, you need content? I will give you content from every wedding, as long as you do me a favor of giving me the opportunity to film it without rushing me out the room, and B, just keep sending me more friends of yours, and I will keep providing you beautiful things for yourself, right? So that was A. And I do random stuff like call planners and be like, hey, what you doing? Nothing? Cool. Where you at? I'm at the house. Cool. Let's do DoorDash lunch for no reason. Just, we're virtual now, so we can have a meeting like this and enjoy a salad or a burger or whatever you like to eat and build relationships, right? We talk about the kids, we talk about things, so they were always at the top of mind. The other thing people don't really put a lot of stock into is SEO. SEO is really big. And when you take the time to do it right, it yields amazing dividends. There are clients who find us from all over the United States, which is why we travel so much, because of Google, because we took the time to really optimize our pages and be intentional about the words that we use and showing up intentionally. So that's really how our wedding business, the marketing, has worked very well for us. I mean, we did attach ourselves to some wedding industry organizations like Monoluchi Bride and Manahari Weddings, that's the South Asian version of that, and some other collectives like that, which has helped. But that was more about building relationships. Right? It's really about not organic relationship building, it's manufactured relationship building. Oh my gosh, you're in that? Me too. That type of thing, right? And that's helpful and it has its place, right? But at the end of the day, you have to be a people person and you have to be able to go out there and build those relationships. You just can't live behind your website and think you're going to get clients. No, don't work like that. No.
All right, Ben, here's my next question though. So how is it different in the commercial world? Because there isn't a wedding planner. So what is your commercial version of a wedding planner?
After about 4 or 5 years of working in weddings, Natasha said to me, these people that we do these weddings for, they probably got a really good job. I was like, what? Yeah. That's a good idea. Maybe we should retarget them with non-wedding work, right? And so we took all our wedding clients and we put them in an email list. And so now every month we send out non-wedding related stuff and wedding related stuff in one email. Like, oh my gosh, we just shot this wedding. It was beautiful. And if you have any couples, any friends are getting married, oh my gosh, we would love to shoot their wedding and send you a bottle of champagne as a way of saying thank you for referring them. But look, outside of weddings, oh my gosh, we just did this amazing shoot for the CDC about this. And then we list things that we know they understand. KPIs, we talk about metrics, right? People like to save money, know how much money they would have made. And then they take these things and they bring them to their boss and their boss be like, oh my gosh, I heard you guys do weddings and I saw you guys did this amazing stuff. We'd love to have you on this project because we love your storytelling. So we love to bring it all together, and it always ends up coming back to storytelling. People are not hiring us because we have amazing CGI work or our drone work is like, that's not it.
I mean,
We
your drone
always
work
get
is pretty on point, though. Continue. I'm
things.
sorry.
I practice. But people keep coming back for the same reason. The same reason why they hire us for weddings are the same reason why they're hiring us for corporate. It's for the storytelling. So we made storytelling our niche. So we use our past couples as a way as gatekeeper. And
Into
then
the commercial
second,
world.
yeah. And then secondarily, the beauty of attending a university is that you create those networks, you create those relationships, right? And so in creating those relationships, we have longtime friends who are now becoming heads of marketing departments, or becoming now VPs, or becoming now executive directors. So they are now the decision makers. And because we have nurtured those relationships over the past decade, where they've watched the transformation, they've watched the growth, now they know when I'm at a place where I can bring in people that I trust that will help elevate my brand and my position within my company. There's somebody I can trust. So I'm going to bring in somebody I know, because I don't have to worry about hand holding or the end product. I've watched it over the past few years. So it's a lot of times people think it's all of a sudden I meet somebody, we're going to get this job, it's going to work out. Like, no, you have to nurture these relationships.
Put in the time.
Yeah, over years and years and years. I mean, the project that we just did might have been the biggest budget project we've ever done, but it took 5, 6, 7 years of shaking hands, kissing babies, smiling, nurturing, showing up to get that project, right? To get these type of projects. And so that's the part that people don't understand is business relationships, B2B, is a lot about nurturing, but also about being at the right place at the right time with an answer for their problem. In corporate, they're only hiring you if you can fix their problem. If you can't fix their problem and it's just pretty, on to the next person. So
I want to talk about pricing, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you to tell everybody what you make, because everybody gets a lot of money. I'll just tell you that. But I think what I'm most interested in asking you when we think about your wedding work and we think about your commercial work is, do you have standard fees for your wedding films and then you kind of customize them based on travel? Or is everything that you do a custom quote? And if it is a custom quote, how long and what's your process for putting together the quote that you are giving the commercial clients and then perhaps your wedding film clients?
Sure. So I'll start with weddings and I'll transition to corporate.
Okay.
That cool?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. For our weddings, we used to do everything custom, and then that was driving us crazy. It took too long to get proposals out, and then we said, this is not God's plans for our life. So then we moved more to a buffet model where we give you a plate, that's the base price, and everything else you add on there becomes a la carte. So if you want chicken wings, you can have chicken wings. If you want, chicken tenders, you can have chicken tenders, right? Using that analogy. So we have different variations of different products that we offer, and then we allow customers to customize those within reason. Again, there's variables that we control, but we're giving the semblance of option. People like to have options. And so we're kind of more of a base price with an a la carte system. That's worked very well for us. It's been extremely successful. It's allowed us to maximize our time and our profits. We also studied a lot what photographers do. Photographers charge for their time, and everything else you want, you got to buy. Wait, what do you mean I don't get prints? No, that's not how this works. So we was like, wait, if they can do it, I can do it. Exactly. So it took a while for it to kick in for people to buy in, but we made sure that everything we produced was at a very high level. So that way, when we said that this is the way we did business, people didn't flinch. They were like, okay, that's fine. So send me the bill. Ooh, send me the bill. Right. So that's worked very, very well for us. Over the years, we have a rule on how we decide when to increase prices and when we need to decrease prices, right? Based upon the number of bookings and based upon the amount of money we want to make that year, based upon the actual events we have. I will say this, and I'll throw this out as a mind grenade for people. If it's a major holiday, wedding vendors tend to just go out and work it just because it's Labor Day. That's the busiest holiday of the year. I need to go out and I need to book all these weddings. What? That's goofy. Everybody else on the wedding day on Labor Day is getting paid time and a half, right? Or they're off or they get paid time and a half. How come you're not getting paid time and a half? Because you don't value yourself enough to ask for time and a half. So on major holidays, I'm getting paid an extra fee to not be with my family. Does that change the fact that I'm not going to be with my family? No, but at least I'll feel a little bit happier knowing that I might have missed Labor Day with my son on his only day off before he starts school. But you know what? All his school supplies is paid for because I got
Okay.
paid extra today, right? That type of thing, right? So, and that's a big deal, right? And so, sorry, that was a mind grenade. I had to throw that out there. Kadoosh.
It's all right. I remember that New Year's Eve wedding that you shot. That now I got a different mind frame about that wedding that you shot.
Yeah, like I'm not leaving my house on New Year's Eve unless it's financially in my favor. And sometimes, we'll throw out outlandish numbers like, anybody about to pay that? I'm not trying to go on New Year's. Y'all are tripping out y'all mind. So, hey, Tasha, get into this ridiculous number ever. See what they say. She'd be like, they paid it. What? Right? That be what? That be
You're
the
like,
face we
we
make.
can celebrate New Year's Eve tomorrow because
I
I'm
said,
gonna make this bread today.
listen, I bring the kids with me and an Andy. Anybody got time for that, right? That type of thing, right? So need I digress. But so being able to price so that you're profitable is very, really important. Don't price yourself so low that you run yourself ragged. I don't care if you're shooting corporate or you're shooting weddings. And it's much easier to run yourself ragged in weddings because people will shoot 4 weddings a weekend and wear it like a badge of honor rather than think that maybe I'm not doing my physical and mental health a good service. So now when we talk about pricing for corporate, that's a whole different monster. It really should be based off of value, the value that you're going to provide your customer. So for example, if you're going to do a video per se for a mom and pop shop, right? They're probably only doing maybe $1 million, maybe $2 million if they have the best now and laters ever on the planet, right? Or Huggy Juices or Quarter Chips, right? So you have to understand you can't price them the same way you would price ESPN for a shoot because their return on investment is not the same. The value that you're providing them is not the same. So you have to understand and go in asking the right questions. What is this going to be used for? How is it going to be used? In what marketing channels is it going to be used? So that you don't end up shooting yourself in the foot. One, pricing yourself too low, because if you price yourself too low, they won't take you serious. Learn that the hard
I
way.
had that happen.
Yes. No matter how good your work is, if you price yourself way too low, it's going to raise a flag like, why y'all so cheap? Something must be wrong, right? So that's A. But B, also when you start doing commercial work, there's a lot more permits, licenses, releases, agreements, things that need to be signed. There's a lot more admin work that has to be done. Licenses
You need
cost
to be
money.
paid for that admin work.
You got to get paid for the admin work. There's a lot that comes with that, like chasing the city for a permit to shoot at a park. Child, I chased the city for 3 weeks for a permit. That's a lot of work. Like, anybody got time to keep calling Becky? Like, Becky, pick up, give me the permit, right? But also when you have to get music licensing, right? People are so used to going on the music bed or art list or whatever your royalty-free music place of choice is and just downloading a song, paying that $49, $16, whatever you pay, and being gone. But when you're doing commercial work, those licenses aren't $49. Like, those licenses are thousands of dollars depending upon the company, the corporation, and the project you're working on. So you have to take those things into account. And if you don't, you'll end up doing a project and making negative $3,000, right? Because you didn't ask the right questions on the onset. So pricing from commercial, there's not like a formula. I really say go in asking as many questions as possible. Figure out what the value is going to be. Figure out what the KPIs that corporation or that company or that business needs. And then figure out what you should price based upon that. I say figure out what your staffing cost is going to be, what your overhead is going to be, what your post-production and your license is going to be. Add it all up, then multiply that times 0.3 so you make a profit. And then and make sure you pay yourself in there before you multiply it times 0.3. You need to get paid. Your business needs to get paid. Let me say that again. You need to get paid and your business needs to get paid, right? Because new cameras ain't free and that shouldn't come out your household budget. Yeah. Boom, right? So add all that up, multiply that times 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, whatever tickles your fancy. So you have a profit margin and that's what you charge.
So if someone, because I mean, I know as I just admitted, like the first time that, and it was a big, like a huge corporation. And I didn't really think about how big they were at that point. And later it was, I realized I really, shot myself in the foot by putting forth like a budget that was really, really small because I was basing it off of like my family work. I didn't do that the
Right.
next time a big corporation came to me. But for like that very first time, Ben, you probably don't understand how much time it's going to take you to do the admin work. You
Mm-hmm.
probably don't have a number in mind. Like if they give you this KPI, you don't really know how to take that number and make it something. So if
Right.
someone is trying to land their first commercial gig, and let's say that it's not for a mom and pop show, let's say that it's like, Fortune 500 company, like something really
Mm-hmm.
big, and they're coming to you, how is it that you in your head try to figure out what you should charge this first time? Because when it comes to like family work or I guess weddings or anything that's on a smaller scale, I'm always like, if you end up setting a price and it's not enough, you just raise it the next time. Do you know what I mean? Like you
Right.
have room to make a mistake. But I
Right.
feel like in commercial, there is like no wiggle room because, like you said, if you don't quote them enough and it comes in the back end and your licensing costs so much more than you thought, you can't be in the negative trying to produce this, work for this corporation
Right.
when, they make tens of millions of dollars a year and all this. So, how can someone avoid that when they have their first opportunity?
First things first, research. Before you send a proposal, research. If you don't research anything else, research what music licensing is going to cost, because that's the thing that normally shoots people in the foot. They have no idea how much it costs to license a song with worldwide use that can be used for broadcast, advertising, and social, and can be used in subsidiaries, right? That's a whole different beast than I'm just going to do a family film or a wedding film and we're just going to show it on YouTube.
So, can I ask you a question, Ben? So, like,
Sure.
is why okay, so why would you include that in your upfront quote? Why wouldn't you just add an addendum or something? I mean, I'm making this shit up as we go. Why wouldn't you just like separate that from your budget, because that is something that is going to be paid directly to someone else for the licensing rights and not
Mhm.
necessarily, to you, and you don't really have any control over that. So is there a reason that you would fold that in to your initial budget versus leaving it as like this addendum where it's like, okay, this
Mhm.
is my fee. And then when we come together and we choose your music, this is a range of what it's going to cost, but it will be determined at that time by the
Right.
specific music that we choose.
So what I've learned is most companies don't care about the details. They're paying for a solution, right? Okay, how you get the solution? Just get me to the solution, right? So when you tell me it's going to cost me $10 to get to the solution, I expect it's going to cost me $10. If you're going to tell me it's going to cost me $25 and you can explain why it's going to cost me $25, as long as I understand the reason why, I will pay you $25 as long as you get me my solution,
My
because I know
result.
that
Mm-hmm.
that result is going to make me X amount of dollars on the back end, right? So just in generalities here, hypothetically speaking, right? We've done $40,000 projects before, right? Where I knew that this $40,000 project would make this company $2, $3, $4 million, right? So when I asked for that number, I knew that I would have to pay for the licensing for music in there, but I went out and I did the research on how much would these licenses cost me before I bid for the project, right? Before
Mm-hmm.
they asked me for a final number. So I kind of have an idea of what things cost. So before you start, before you do your proposals, really like reach out. If you have a team of people you want to work with, ask them what's your rate going to be, right? Whatever rate they give you, add an extra $3, $4 on there just for wiggle
Just to
room, right?
cover you.
Just to cover you. Bill for miscellaneous expenses, things you don't even think about, memory cards, hard drives. You need data recovery. You need redundancy systems. So don't have it on one hard drive, put it on 7 hard drives. That sounds crazy. Sounds crazy until you get paid $40,000 for a job.
Okay.
They
And
don't
you
they
can't
don't
lose
care.
that.
They don't care. They don't care. So have 7 hard drives, 4 SSDs, 2 spinnings, and put it in the cloud. Like you don't need no smoke if something happens. Sounds crazy, but that's real, right? You have to build for this type of stuff. You have to think about all the what ifs, and then you need to build for those things. What if you show up the day of and your camera don't work? What are you gonna do? You better have 4 cameras in your bag. You have 4 cameras? No. Well, you need to build the right cameras, right? Just because you own a camera, right? Most people don't build for equipment in their commercial work,
I do.
right? You need to build for your equipment. Somebody pay for those cameras, those lenses, those lights. You did. Well, you rent them to yourself, and then you bill for it, and then you get paid. Because if you didn't own it, you would have to rent it anyway, right? These movie studios don't walk around with $15,000 movie cameras in the back of their truck. Like, they rent this stuff and they rent it indefinitely for however long they need it. So you need to build the same way they build. They build for their time, they build for their equipment, they build for their expertise. You need to build for all of those three things, because those things are very, really important when you're building out your quotes. And then on top of that, make sure again you're building in profit for yourself on
And your
top of
business.
and your business
Write
for
that down.
everything else. Pay yourself first.
Guess what, Ben? I ain't got no more questions for you. Like,
Woo.
we're gonna end it on pay yourself, because that is the perfect place to end. Yourself.
Yes.
All right, Ben, if these people in this listening audience want to check out more of your wedding films or your commercial work, where should they find you on the internet?
So you can find me on Beyonce's internet at YameanStudiosFilms.com. That's YAMEAN Studiosfilms.com. And on social media, we're at Yamean Studios everywhere: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. I think that's the only places we live.
You know what, Ben? Do you have a LinkedIn?
We do have a LinkedIn.
I'm going to go look.
But it ain't that good. Okay, listen, first of all, we are redeveloping our LinkedIn. So you heard it here first. We are actually working on separating our wedding business and commercial business to have two separate brands. As of now, especially because there's a lot more commercial work coming up, and people be like, every time I Google you, all I see is wedding. Well, here's the non-wedding stuff. I need non-wedding stuff to come up when I tell people, it to. So we're working on separating our brands now. The new brand is called McKee Place. Actually, where I did my first design work in college, the street I lived on in my dorm. So we're working on doing that now. That will be on LinkedIn, on and popping big time as soon as we get that. We're finishing up that website now. And just another mind grenade for people. When you want to do corporate work and you want to like have a website where you put your work on there, don't just put pretty stuff, right? Make it into case studies. So people, because people will read the case studies up. They want to know that what you made actually had a result. You know what I mean? Here was the problem. Here's what we did. Here's the result. Here's what the testimonial was. Oh my gosh, they must be amazing. Let me hire them. Take all my money. That type of thing, right? So we're working on developing a very thorough business website where all different types of videos that are follow case study format, because that's what gets people in the door. That's what gets people to keep hitting your buy button, book button, and give you all their money.
Ben, amazing. Everyone, I feel like this needs to be a part 2, so stay tuned. But that's it for this episode. See you next time.